Welcome to lesson 1.4 in secondary math 3. This is the last lesson in our first unit of the year, which means your review and test will be next week. This lesson in 1.4 is kind of two mini lessons squished into one. So we have two things we need to talk about. We need to talk about solving systems by graphing and average rate of change. We're going to do solving systems by graphing first because that one's super easy and super fast. When we solve a system by graphing, what this really means is what point is on both equations. That's what it's actually talking about when we're solving a system. What point is on both equations? So if I look at this table, what point is on both tables? So I look down the table and I can see right here where x equals 1, f of x equals -2, and same with g of x. That is the point that exists on both tables. Now double check, are there any others? Doesn't look like it. Now when we're solving systems, there can be no solutions, meaning they don't have any points in common. There could be one solution like this one. There could be 2 or 3 or even more. When we write the answer, we always write it like this. F of x equals g of x when x equals, and then we list the x value for the point they have in common. So right here, that x value is 1. Let's do one more example. Scroll to your notes right here. Practice exercises A. So if we look at number 1, look through the table, what points do they have in common? And we notice that these tables have -1, 4, the same. And they actually have another one, 2, 10, is also the same. So we would say f of x equals g of x when x equals -1 and 2. Those are the x values where they're the same. And there we're done. Tables number 2 and 3 are homework. Come back up to our notes. Let's do another example. This one, we're still doing when f of x equals g of x, so solving systems of equations, but this time we get to graph it on Desmos. So I'm going to graph all of that in Desmos in line 1, and all of that in Desmos in line 2. So I'm going to go over here to Desmos and have f of x equals, let's see, what was it? X squared plus x minus 12. X squared plus x minus 12. And in line 2, g of x equals log of x plus 5 minus 3. Log log of x plus 5 minus 3. There we go. Now I look over here at what Desmos gives me. I have this graph right here. Remember, solving systems of equations means finding the point they have in common. When we're graphing, that's the intersection point. So if I touch the graph, just like we did in the last lesson, I get all these gray dots right here. I want the gray dots where the graphs intersect. That means this point is on both of those graphs. They intersect. They have the same point. So I have 2 of them for this one. So I'm going to say f of x equals g of x when x equals, got -3.567 and 2.684. And there's my answer. Let's try another one. Try this one. Do that in line 1 in Desmos and that in line 2 in Desmos. If you're not sure where to find these absolute value bars, it should be the key just under your backspace key. So I want you to try this one. Graph both of those in Desmos, and then see what the intersection points are, how many you have, and then list them out So pause the video, try that one out, and we'll come back and see if you're right. Okay, when you type them into Desmos, you should get a graph that looks like this. Remember, we're looking for the intersection points, so I touch anywhere on the graph. All these gray points show up, and I want the points where they intersect. So those two, and I write them out. F of x equals g of x when x equals negative 15.048 and 14.186. So there's that kind, and if you go past your table page, you'll find this page. Questions 1 through 6 are homework. And it's exactly like what we just did, where you type these equations into Desmos, find where they intersect, write out your answer. So that is the first part of our lesson about solving systems of equations by graphing. In the next video, we'll talk about average rate of change.